Have you ever had your whole world shattered in a single moment? Imagine sitting at your own birthday dinner, surrounded by loved ones, when suddenly your sister drops a bombshell. She's pregnant with your husband's child. The betrayal cuts deeper than you ever thought possible. This is my story, a story of heartbreak, betrayal, and ultimately, healing. Stay with me as I take you through the darkest moments of my life and how I found the strength to rise again. It was supposed to be a perfect evening, my birthday dinner with my closest family and friends. I had spent the whole day excited, smiling, thinking about how lucky I was to have such a loving husband and a sister who was my best friend. I had planned everything carefully. My favorite restaurant, my favorite dishes, the perfect little celebration. As I walked into the warmly lit room, I saw my husband waiting for me with that gentle smile I had fallen in love with. My sister was already there, sitting at the table, looking unusually quiet but putting on a SMI. I didn't suspect anything. Not a single thing. The dinner began with laughter, stories, and the clinking of glasses. My heart was full. I thought this would be a night to remember for all the right reasons. But deep down, I felt a strange tension, like the calm BEF. Then, out of nowhere, my sister stood up. The room grew quiet. She cleared her throat, took a deep breath, and announced something that shattered my world in an instant. "I'm pregnant, and it's with your husband." The words hung in the air like a dark cloud. Every eye turned to me, expecting a reaction. Maybe tears, maybe screams, maybe a collapse. IW. But instead, I felt numb. My mind raced, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. The world seemed to slow down, and for a terrifying moment, I questioned everything I thought I knew. This was the beginning of the darkest chapter of my life, and I was about to realize that betrayal could come from the people. Ray. After my sister's shocking announcement, the room fell into an unbearable silence. Everyone was waiting for me to say something. Anything. But all I could hear was the deafening thump of my own heartbeat in my ears. I looked at my husband. His eyes were avoiding mine, avoiding me. And then I saw my sister's face, a strange mix of guilt, defiance, and something I couldn't quite understand. She didn't look remorseful. She looked like she expected me to break. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run away, but my legs felt like lead. My throat was tight. I couldn't breathe properly. "Why?" was all I could manage to whisper. No one answered. My husband's silence spoke louder than words. My sister looked away. The people around me awkwardly shifted in their seats. Some looked horrified, some sympathetic, but no one dared to say a word. It was as if time froze just for me, trapping me in that moment of disbelief. I tried to hold myself together. For a moment, I thought about standing up and leaving, running far away from this unbearable reality, but I stayed. I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of seeing me fall apart in front of everyone. Instead, I forced a small smile and said, "Thank you for sharing, I guess." It came out hollow, but it was all I could say. As the dinner dragged on awkwardly, I realized something. This wasn't just about betrayal. It was about how the people closest to you could hurt you the deepest. And how, sometimes, the worst pain comes from those you love the most. That night, I went home feeling like my whole world had crumbled into dust. That night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in the dark living room. The silence was deafening. I stared blankly at the ceiling, unable to process what had happened just hours before. My mind kept replaying my sister's words over and over. "I'm pregnant, and it's with your husband." I asked myself 1,000 questions. How could this happen? How long had they been hiding this from me? Why would they do this, especially on my birthday? I wanted to hate them both. But all I felt was emptiness, a hollow ache that spread from my chest down to my stomach. I thought about calling my husband, demanding answers, but my voice caught in my throat every time. The man I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I thought about my sister, the person I thought I could always count on, the one who should have had my back. And yet, here I was, broken by the very people I loved. Tears came quietly at first, then poured uncontrollably. I cried not just for the betrayal, but for the loss of the family I thought I had, for the dreams I had of growing old with my husband, for the sisterly bond I thought was unbreakable. I wanted to scream into the night, but all that came out was a whisper. Why me? Sleep didn't come that night. Instead, I lay awake, feeling every bit of pain, confusion, and loneliness crash over me like waves. And I knew one thing for sure. My life was about to change forever. The next morning, I woke up with a heavy heart and an exhausted soul. I had barely slept, and the ache in my chest was still there, raw and unhealed. I knew I had to face them, my husband and my sister. I needed answers, but more than that, I needed to understand why. When I saw my husband in the kitchen, making coffee as if nothing had happened, my stomach twisted into knots. His eyes met mine, but there was no warmth there anymore. Just guilt and shame. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He nodded silently. I could tell he didn't know where to start. Neither did I. We sat down at the table, and I asked the questions that had haunted me all night. How long? Why didn't you tell me? Did you love me at all? His silence was a punch to the gut. He finally admitted that it had been going on for months, that he felt trapped, confused, but too scared to end things. Then I called my sister. She hesitated but agreed to meet me. When she arrived, her eyes were tired, almost resigned. "I didn't want to hurt you," she said quietly. "But I thought, maybe you'd understand if I told you." Understand? How could I understand that? How could anyone? We sat in silence for a long time. No apologies could fix this. No words could erase the betrayal. I realized then that some wounds don't heal quickly, if ever. But I also knew I had to find strength, not just for me, but for the life ahead. Whatever it might look like now. Days passed, but the pain didn't fade. If anything, it grew heavier, like an invisible weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. I kept replaying moments in my head. The smiles, the laughter, the trust I had blindly given. And now, everything felt like a lie. I couldn't bring myself to look at my husband without seeing the betrayal in his eyes. Every shared memory was now stained by doubt. My sister tried to reach out, sent messages, called, but I didn't respond. How could I? How could I forgive something so deeply painful? Friends noticed the change in me. The sparkle in my eyes was gone. The warmth in my smile faded. They asked if I was okay, but how could I explain a pain that feels like it's tearing you apart from the inside? I felt isolated, trapped in a prison of heartbreak and confusion. One night, I found myself standing by the window, looking out at the city lights, wondering if I could ever feel whole again. The betrayal had broken something inside me, but I didn't want it to define who I was. I wanted to believe in healing, in strength, in myself. But that journey, it was going to be the hardest thing I'd ever face. One morning, after weeks of numbness and silence, I woke up feeling a flicker of something I hadn't felt in a long time. Determination. I realized I couldn't let this betrayal destroy me. Not completely. I had two choices: stay broken or start rebuilding. So I made a decision to take back control of my life, piece by piece. I started with small things, going for walks, reaching out to close friends, writing in a journal to pour out my tangled emotions. Every step was painful, but each one was a step forward. I also decided to see a therapist. Talking to someone who didn't judge or take sides helped me untangle the mess of feelings inside me. Slowly, I began to understand something important. My worth wasn't tied to their actions or their betrayal. I was still me, strong, worthy, and capable of love and happiness. This turning point wasn't an overnight fix. It was the beginning of a long journey to healing and self-discovery. And though the scars would remain, I promised myself that one day they wouldn't hurt as much. As weeks turned into months, I slowly began to reclaim my life. I stopped avoiding mirrors and started looking at myself. Not with anger or sadness, but with a quiet compassion. I threw myself into work, rediscovered old hobbies, and even made plans for the future, a future that no longer included the people who had hurt me so deeply. My husband and sister, they became ghosts in my past. I stopped answering their calls, stopped letting their presence control my emotions. I surrounded myself with people who loved me for who I was, not for the role I played in someone else's drama. One day, a friend told me, "You're stronger than you know." At first, I didn't believe it. But over time, those words began to feel true. I realized that surviving betrayal didn't mean I was weak. It meant I was brave, brave enough to face the pain, brave enough to let go, brave enough to rebuild. And slowly, very slowly, I started to see light again. Rebuilding my life also meant learning to trust again. Not just others, but myself. For so long, I had doubted my own instincts, my own worth. I wondered if I had missed the signs, or if I was naive to believe in love and family. But healing showed me that trusting didn't mean ignoring red flags. It meant setting boundaries, valuing myself, and being courageous enough to open my heart again. I met new people, forged new friendships, and slowly allowed myself to be vulnerable, carefully, cautiously. It wasn't easy. There were moments when the past still haunted me, when memories tried to pull me back into the darkness. But each time, I reminded myself how far I'd come, how much strength I had found inside. And that's when I understood betrayal could break a person, but it could also teach them resilience, courage, and the true meaning of self-love. As I continued to heal, I realized something powerful. Peace doesn't come from revenge or anger. It comes from forgiveness, not for them, but for me. Forgiving my husband and sister didn't mean forgetting what they did or inviting them back into my life. It meant releasing the heavy burden of hatred that was holding me captive. I began to focus on myself, on what truly mattered. My happiness, my dreams, my future. I started meditating, practicing gratitude, and appreciating the small joys that had been overshadowed by pain. Most importantly, I learned to love myself again. That love became my armor, my strength, and my guide, and with that love, I found peace. Not perfect, but enough to move forward. Months have passed since that night. The night my sister announced her pregnancy with my husband at my birthday dinner. I am no longer the person who sat silently, broken, and betrayed. I am stronger, wiser, and more resilient than I ever imagined. I have learned that life can change in an instant, that the people we love can hurt us deeply, but also that we have the power to heal ourselves. Today, I choose to embrace a new beginning, not defined by pain or betrayal, but by hope and self-love. I have let go of the anger that consumed me. I have rebuilt my trust in myself. And while the scars remain, they remind me not of what was lost, but of what I survived. To anyone out there who has faced heartbreak and betrayal, know this: you are not alone. Your pain is real, but so is your strength. And one day, like me, you will find your way back to light. Thank you for listening to my story. If you've ever felt betrayed or broken, remember, you are not alone. Healing takes time, but it's possible. You are stronger than your pain. If this story touched you, please like, share, and subscribe for more stories of real-life resilience and hope. And always remember, no matter how dark the night, the dawn will come.